Welcome to my channel, Psychology for All. Opening the door for better mental health. Hello, I am Anand. I am a psychologist and psychotherapist. This channel is about anxiety, fear and phobia, loneliness, nicotine addiction, social media addiction, stage fear, gaming addiction, and further psychological disorders and the treatment for them. Most people experience stress and anxiety at some point in their life. Depending on the level of severity, they can detrimentally impact one's quality of life. Stress and anxiety are often used interchangeably, and there is overlap between stress and anxiety. Stress is related to the same fight, flight or freeze response as in difficulties, uneasiness, tension, headaches, high blood pressure and loss of sleep. Generally, stress is a response to an external cause, such as tight deadline at work or having an argument with a friend, and subsides once the situation has been resolved. Because stress is caused by external factors, tackling these head-on can help. When something is a threat, the human body is instantly and automatically ready to run for its life or fight for it. This response is the fight or flight response, and it has been hardwired into the human brain. Fight or flight is a primitive response, all action and not a lot of thought. Reason and rationality are quite useless against it. The human brain has perfected the response over thousands of years. Back in the days of cavemen, cavewomen and cave wild animals, humans needed a quick physical response to avoid dangerous situations. Fast forward to a time of dogs, logs and no tigers and other wild animals, and the need for physical response is significantly less. Despite this, the part of the human brain that has been mastering the fight or flight response for thousands of years is still just as active and on guard as ever. It is blind to the specifics of this threat, opting to act first and ask questions later. If at all, it continues to respond as though every signal or tension from the environment is a risk to ourselves or self-preservation. Stress focuses on mainly external pressures on us that we are finding hard to cope with. When we are stressed, we usually know what we are stressed about, and the symptoms of stress typically disappear after the stressful situation is over. If you are experiencing prolonged chronic stress, there are many ways to manage and reduce your symptoms, including physical activity, breathing exercises, adequate sleep, and taking time to connect with others. Anxiety, on the other hand, is not always as easy to figure out. Anxiety focuses on worries or fears about things that would threaten us, as well as anxiety about the anxiety itself. Stress and anxiety are both part of being human, but both can be problems if they last for a long time or have an impact on our well-being or daily life. Anxiety is a person's specific reaction to stress. Its origin is internal. Anxiety is typically characterized by a persistent feeling of apprehension or dread in situations that are not actually threatening. Unlike stress, anxiety persists even after a concern has passed. In more severe cases, anxiety can escalate into an anxiety disorder. Anxiety disorders are classified in a variety of ways: generalized anxiety, panic disorders, phobias, social anxiety, obsessive compulsive disorders, and post-traumatic stress disorder. The most important step to controlling anxiety is understanding where it comes from and why it is there. Anxiety is the overprotective parent that fights the gladiatorial heart to keep us safe. The problem is that sometimes its vigilance switches into hyperdrive. If you can think of anxiety as the fight or flight response trying to do its job, the symptoms will soon pass. But if you take them as evidence that there is something to be feared, such as the presence of a real threat, the beginning of a heart attack, a sign that you are about to make a fool of yourself, then you will give your anxiety fuel and the symptoms will persevere. Understanding the physical symptoms is the first and most critical step in getting control of anxiety. When there is perceived danger, a signal travels from the environment to the amygdala, the primitive structure in the hypothalamus, that automatically and instantly triggers a fight or flight response. The body is surged with stress hormones, adrenaline and noradrenaline, to provide the body with the physical resources to fight or flee. Breathing changes from slow breaths deep in the belly to rapid breathing high in the chest to supply the body with oxygen to fuel the fight or flight response. You might feel a shortness of breath, chest pain or tightness or flushing. If the oxygen isn't expended through fighting or fleeing, the oxygen gives up. You might experience dizziness, confusion, hot flashes, and a sense of unreality. Heartbeat and heart rate increases to efficiently deliver oxygen around the body. This can feel like you are about to have a heart attack. Blood pressure increases to get the blood to the large muscles of the arm and the legs. These are preparation for the fight or flight mechanism. Muscles might feel tense. Perspiration increases to prevent the body from overheating. You might feel clammy or sweaty. Pupils dilate to allow in more light and improve visual awareness long distance to find the escape route. Your vision might blur, particularly close up. Veins in the skin constrict to send more blood to the major muscle groups. This leaves less blood in the skin for warmth and can bring in the chill that is sometimes associated with fear. Blood flow is diverted from fingers and toes to where it is more needed and to decrease the chances of bleeding to death should the response be fight. This can cause paleness, tingling and cold feet. The digestive system shuts down so that nutrients and oxygen are diverted to the limbs and muscles that will be activated in the event of fight or flight. Your mouth might feel dry. You might get the feeling of butterflies in your belly and you might experience nausea and or constipation. The brain gets busy focusing on the big picture to fight the threat and plan a way out. This may lead to difficulty focusing on small details. The symptoms of anxiety all have a physiological basis. They have been called to action by the fight or flight response and each has a very specific and very important part to play in ensuring our survival. The problem, however, is that for the most part there is no threat to our survival. Nothing to fight, nothing to flee. The fight or flight response is primitive, always automatic but not always accurate. Most of the time, when it is triggered, there is actually no threat at all. The amygdala, the part of the brain that initiates the fight or flight response, can't tell the difference between a real threat and a non-real threat. A threat is a threat, whether real or imagined, and all are responded to as though they are a real and immediate danger to our physical safety. That is where you come in. If there is no obvious need for fight or flight, your fight or flight response has been triggered unnecessarily. The first thing to do is to remind yourself of this. You are not in danger, you are not dying. Your body is just responding to the brain that has overreacted a little. It happens to all of us from time to time. Everything you are feeling is tied to the fight or flight response. In this context, the physical symptoms are perfectly normal, even if the need for fight or flight is unnecessary. Next, turn your attention to your breathing. Part of your fight or flight response is rapid, shallow breathing. This causes an oversupply of oxygen and increased heart rate and contributes to many of the physical symptoms. When your breathing is under control, these physical symptoms will and should reverse. Breathe deeply and slowly. Take a short pause between breathing out and breathing in. Do this 5 to 10 times. Take the breath deep into your belly. Practice even on the good days so it is there when you need it. Slow, deep breathing is a handbrake for anxiety. Remember, though, the fight or flight response has been doing its thing for a while, so it may take some practice. If your anxiety could talk, it would say that it is there to protect you, to get you ready to fight or flight. Problem is, sometimes it shows up when you don't need protection. Knowing what anxiety is and the truth about where the symptoms are coming from is the first step in taking back charge. It may take some time. Your anxiety might take some convincing that it is overreacting with the fight or flight thing. But with persistence, practice and patience, you will find yourself back in control. Stress response is always due to external factors and anxiety is due to perceived threat that are usually not external. If you are not able to understand the relationship between stress response and anxiety, you start fearing the stress symptoms itself. This fear leads to anxiety. Here, anxiety is caused by the fear of stress response. Persistent fear leads to persistent anxiety, and persistent anxiety leads to generalized anxiety disorder that can further develop into other anxiety disorders, depressive disorders, and sometimes to personality disorders. Understanding stress fight or flight response symptoms and anxiety symptoms can help overcome anxiety in the beginning of the anxiety itself. Knowledge helps. Psychoeducation helps. I'm sure you liked this video. For more updates, do subscribe to my channel and watch these videos.